In last episode we talk about history, species division, classification of Agapornis and nutrition in the wild. In this episode we will talk about Agapornis Canus and Agapornis Taranta, about their habitat, feeding and breeding in captivity. So let's get started. Agapornis Canus is the smallest of the lovebird species, about 14 centimeters tall and weighing about 30 to 36 grams. It is a member of the sexually dimorphic group, a group with visual difference in color between the male and the female. The male has a typical pearl gray head, neck and chest. The eyes are dark brown with a light iris ring. The upper bill is horn-colored and the lower bill is grayer. The rest of the feathers is mainly green, wing coverts are a shade darker than the rest of the body. The flight feather are dark gray with a greenish outer vein. Lower and upper tail coverts are similar to the green body color, the rump seems to be a bit darker. At the base the tail feather are yellowish green merging into a black cross band. The tail endings are green. The feet are light gray and the nails are dark gray. The female is almost completely green with an ash-gray shine across the feathers. Agapornis Canus has two subspecies, Agapornis Canus canus and Agapornis Canus ablectaneus. The first author mentioning this species was Matherin Jacques Brisson. 1760 he described Agapornis for the first time, using a different name. He called this bird Psittacola madagascariensis or the little parrot from Madagascar. In 1781 John Latham described these birds for the first time in English literature and called them gray-headed parakeets. Johann Gmelin, German scientist, mentioned Psittacus canus for the first time. Canus is Latin and means gray. Later on Selby categorized the species in the genus Agapornis. Gray-headed lovebirds were first imported for European aviculture in the second half of the 19th century. When imports were permitted and they were available to aviculture in large numbers, little effort was put into breeding. Agapornis canus is the only species that lives only on island of Madagascar. They can be found in the coastal areas in deciduous forests. They live in groups and feed on grass seeds. Although they live in groups, during the breeding season pairs separate themselves from the rest of the group. They nest in tree hollows where the female use pieces of wood or grass as nesting material. These birds probably have just one nest per year. Gray-headed lovebirds probably start breeding after rainy months because that is a time where the most food can be found. Agapornis canus is not a bird for the impatient breeder. You can breed this birds but do not assume that if you put a pair of birds together a nest, eggs or young will arrive on their own. They will breed only when the conditions are right. That means they need correct housing, food and quality of the parent birds. It is always preferable to have the shelter as large as possible. For breeding you can use a normal flat nesting box 30 by 15 by 15 centimeters. For the nesting material you can use wood chips, peat, coconut fibers, or laurel. Hen will lays the white eggs which will hatch after about 19 days. They are quite susceptible to stress and it is recommended to disturb the birds as little as possible during the breeding. You can check the nest when the female has left the nesting box. Young birds leave the nest after 7 weeks and are fed by the parents for another 2 weeks, after that the young can be housed separately. The difference between the sexes is visible after 3 to 4 weeks of age. A special point of attention during the judging is the pearl gray head color in the males. This needs to be as even as possible with a minimal yellow shine. The separation of colors needs to be as clean as possible. In the female it is preferable to have the dark shine and or spot as little as possible in the feathers. The black-winged lovebird, also known as Abyssinian lovebird, is about 17 centimeters long. It is the largest of all the lovebirds. Agapornis Taranta belongs to the sexually dimorphic group. That means that males and females have a different color. The male has red design on the forehead which runs to the top of the skull, and he has a red ring around eyes. The tail is black-tipped and feathers below the tail show a yellowish color. The rump and feathers above the tail are light green. The primary flight feathers are black and the wing edges starting from the wing bend are bluish-black. The underwing coverts are black. The beak is red, the iris is brown and the toes and feet are dark gray. The resto of the body is green. The female does not have a red design on the forehead and the bluish wing edges. The underwing coverts are greenish-gray. The dimorphism becomes apparent after their first molt at about 8 or 9 months of age. A difference can however be seen in the underwing coverts. These are grayish-green in the females and more black in the males. Agapornis Taranta was most probably discovered in 1809 or 1810. Agapornis Taranta lives on the high plains of northeastern, central and western Ethiopia, southern Eritrea and eastern Djibouti. Agapornis Taranta are found in forest areas and in cities. They are well adapted to a life in the city. Agapornis Taranta are no longer caught in the wild due to the import restrictions on rare animals. They live in small groups and rest at night in tree hollows. During the mating season the female creates a shallow spherical bottom layer of twigs, branches, and leaves in such a hollow which she transported between her feathers. This is typical for the sexually dimorphic group and Agapornis roseacalis. Female loses part of her chest and abdomen feathers just before she lays eggs and uses them to cover the nest bowl. This method is not seen in any other lovebird species. In the wild they mainly feed on grass seeds, berries, and fruit. Agapornis Taranta do breed in aviculture, but not as easily as Personatus or roseacalis. Most pairs will limit themselves to one nest per year, while others may have two. Agapornis Taranta becomes sexually mature during his second year. You need to provide them cage of at least 1 meter, more space is better. Nesting box need to be around 30 by 15 by 15 centimeters. For nesting material you can use willow branches or palm twigs. Female laid white eggs every other day and usually starts to brood after the second egg is laid. The incubation period is about 23 to 25 days. The young have white down feathers when they hatch and you can ring them after 9 to 10 days. They are completely green just like the female and have a dirty yellow beak with a black spot on the top. The young leave the nest after approximately 50 days. Usually they remain for another 10 days with their parents before they can be separated. Agapornis Taranta is a good exhibition bird. Thanks to his calm nature, he is easy to train with a little patience. Judges pay attention that these birds are in excellent shape and especially whether the red ring around the eye in the male is not interrupted. The red color on the forehead should be even without yellow spots in the red zone. Female should have an even color and also the size matters.